the biggest entrepreneur platform on the planet. This is Business Rockstars. I'm Alex Worley. This is Business Rockstars, and my rock star right here, Leon Wu. He's the founder and chief product officer of Sharp Suiting. Thanks so much for being here.
Thanks for having me, Alex. It's really good to be here.
And you look very sharp yourself. I hope you're wearing one of your jackets here.
Yes, absolutely. Wearing a Sharp blazer right now.
Love it.
Thank you.
Okay, so tell us, what is Sharp Suiting?
So, I founded Sharp Suiting in 2013, and back then it was to fill a fashion need, mainly with people who are masculine identified or gender nonconforming like myself. But what it's become nowadays is something that's more of a social brand. We're all about gender equality. We suit custom suits for both men and women, no matter how you identify.
And it's really difficult to break into the fashion industry. There's a lot of competition there, but you found your niche. How did you do that? How did you disrupt this industry?
Yeah, well, I think that being that we were a brand that was inspired by the LGBT community, that really kind of helped us. We did a lot of community events at first. We did a lot of promotions within LGBTQ events. And from there, we followed kind of a niche market and then kind of tried to expand that a little bit more so that we could be a brand that anyone could wear if they really believed in our mission of gender equality.
So you started serving a very particular community and then expanded from there. So that was your strategy?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we had a lot of early success with publicity. We did have a lot of people help us out at publications like Huffington Post, Queer Voices, The Advocate, Frontiers Media, all of the LGBT publications. And we kind of, rode this new wave with them. And, we rode this wave through marriage equality, through trans visibility. And today...
It's very timely.
Very, very timely. It's almost like it happened, in a very specific, predestined, indicated path. And I just took whatever the next indicated path was. This year, it's, with the walkout of over 3 million women and advocates walking across the nation, this year is all about gender equality.
Totally. So it goes to show that even in a really competitive industry like fashion, there are still underserved communities, needs, and it's just about fulfilling those needs. And there's always space for new people.
Yeah, absolutely. I've always believed that fashion is about identity. And, part of my whole identity growing up being gender nonconforming and then identifying as transgender and then a trans man. It's kind of been also a progression for me too. And serving this particular niche at first was exactly that, representing an identity that was not being expressed in the fashion world initially.
Yeah, and you are bringing such an amazing point of view and perspective because this is your passion. It's close to you. It's so much more than a brand. It's your stories interwoven in it, right? Absolutely.
And, I think it's an important one because it represents not just this specific niche group, but also, the right for anyone to wear what they feel comfortable wearing. It doesn't matter how you identify. You can be a man or a woman who wants to wear something that might be a fashion product that's more genderized, particularly. And our mission is all about you should just be able to wear whatever you want to feel confident, empowered, and be yourself.
Yeah, you're really helping change the mindset around fashion, too, because a lot of times, I'm not saying all the time, but sometimes brands think of fashion as a way to impress others, and it's all about image, versus you're coming from the perspective of it being a self-expression of who you are and your own identity. I love that.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been kind of a journey for me and my peers. I work with so many other brands that kind of started on the same path as me, whether it's a shoe brand like Nick Casey Footwear or, streetwear, urban streetwear like Sir New York in New York. And, we're kind of all in this path together where we are all about fashion being you, and how whatever form you express yourself, whatever characteristics, um, the fashion world is quickly kind of changing or catching on to that a little bit. And I think being a custom suiting company, it's easier to do that. That way we can work specifically on personalized fit and style with each person. But I think and I hope with technology that one day fashion is just going to be about personalization, just like a lot of technology is nowadays.
And that's what you're really providing. I went to your website and right away it had me plug in my height, my weight, my style preference,
Yeah.
all these different unique questions that you never really get asked at the sites I go to, and with the idea of personalizing. So tell me a little bit about your process.
Yeah. So right now is version 1.0 of our virtual tailor on our website. And you could pretty much, go to our virtual tailor. It's going to ask you a minimum of 3 or 4 questions, but up to 10 other questions that are optional. And basically, you put in your height, your weight, and right now it's a little bit binary. You have to state whether you're female or male, and that's just really to understand.
And it says how you identify.
Yes,
right?
yeah, it does. How do you identify male or female? We're going to be changing that in the 2.0 version to be a little bit more inclusive of gender nonconforming folks. But right now the technology is a little bit more binary, unfortunately. So with the technology, however, we can pretty much predict your measurements within 97% accuracy. So if you're somebody that's in the Midwest or the East Coast and you want to buy a sharp suit, we're based here in LA or West Hollywood, then you can go on our website and answer those 3 to 10 questions, and we can ship you a suit within 3 to 4 weeks that's going to fit you better than anything you're going to get off the rack.
Right, because regardless of your body type, there's really a suit for you is the concept, right?
Correct. Yeah. And then, part of it is besides, representing how you identify more as male or female, just to understand your body metrics. Then the other question is the style component. Are you more masculine? Are you more feminine? Do you like an androgynous suit? And then that's where we use what we call our anthropometrics to kind of manipulate the measurements in the back end and send you a cut that is according to your style.
Does this seem to be a trend in general that's going to be disrupting the mainstream a little bit?
Yeah. We started to see kind of in 2016 a lot of women, who identify with femininity rocking like a pantsuit at an award show, and I think we're going to see a lot more of that this year. This year is all going to be about, for the next award show, for instance, who's going to be rocking the pantsuit, and hopefully it's going to be a hit for most of these girls, and we're cheering them on. And we want women to feel empowered and be able to rock something that they feel sexy and confident in, and be taken seriously with it.
Oh, I love it. Such a good mission. Thank you so much. We are going to be right back with my guest, Leon Wu, founder and chief product officer of Sharp Suiting. Hey, it's Alex Worley, and this is your Empowerista Business Report. The fear of failure holds women back all the time, and it's often because we're framing failure to be worse than it really is. So the best way to overcome your fear of failure is to make friends with it. So here are 3 ways to think of your failure as your BFF. 1, failure is a detour, not the destination. Your business hasn't been built before, so naturally your non-existent roadmap will have a few detours. 2, failure gives you priceless feedback to reroute you toward success. The quicker you figure out the wrong way is the quicker you can find the right way. 3, failure sometimes means simply removing a roadblock. Maybe you're on the right path but need to eliminate common obstacles like a lack of resources, knowledge, or confidence. Use hashtag Empowerista on social media to let me know what you think of failure. I'm Alex Worley, and this has been your Empowerista Business Report. Alex Worley. This is Business Rock Stars, and this is my rock star, Leon Wu. He's the founder and chief product officer of Sharp Suiting. Such an amazing conversation. Love what you're doing, and a lot of publications have as well. You've gotten a lot of publicity, especially in the beginning. How did you get this publicity?
Thanks. Well, like it kind of started with doing a Kickstarter campaign.
Okay.
And, anyone who's run a successful Kickstarter campaign will tell you that publicity is actually a part of that. You want to make your crowdfunding campaign something that's known to, local publications, to whatever your target market is, that community. For us, we started reaching out to friends that we knew at publications first and kind of building our own PR list. And
just emailed them? Said,
Yeah.
hey, I'm doing this Kickstarter campaign. Are you interested in featuring it?
Yeah, exactly. We had some friends at Huffington Post, as I mentioned before, The Advocate, Out Magazine. Like, we've been in probably, I don't know, at least 50 different publications in the last 3 years. And it just kind of was something that we started off with, a very kind of controlled list that kind of just brought about more and more different referrals.
And then people probably saw you.
Yeah.
And yeah.
And so it was a lot of reaching out first. And then what happens was, other people who work at other publications, they'll read about us somewhere and then they'll contact us. And so now we're seeing a lot of publicity coming in. So as a fashion brand, you always kind of want to start working on your PR list first and, continuing to let people know what you're doing as a business. And then sooner or later, you'll, kind of get the ball rolling and people will start contacting you.
Yeah, so really tap into your own network, but then if there's a new network that you don't have connections in, then maybe that's when PR comes in handy.
Yeah.
Yeah, so obviously every entrepreneur knows it's one thing to have an idea, and it's another thing to execute it and make it a reality as you have. So what were some of those steps that you took that really helped you execute the idea in the beginning?
Well, I think... with any sort of new product or new service or operations process, you want to test it out, And then, after testing it out on myself for a couple tries, then get some friends involved and say, hey, can I make you a suit? Maybe offer it to them at cost or something and just kind of go into different, and this is very much my mentality and what I've learned being an IT person, is you have your first test and then you have your second test, and then you test with a larger group and then you start selling, at a certain price. And we kind of like graduated with each group, and then we were able to get our prices to market level at a certain point and sell to people that didn't necessarily know me personally. And now, we're selling to all sorts of people, men, women,
Yeah. And you're online, and of course, and that is a strategy to primarily be online versus opening a bunch of stores because it allows you to scale and grow more. Tell me a little bit more about that.
Yeah. So the good thing about custom is that you won't necessarily have an inventory with ready to wear or specific standardized sizing. You have to buy a certain amount per size, For us, we're custom. So, what we want to do was be able to offer this to people outside of LA. Well, how do you do that for a custom suiting company? So I had to kind of think out of the box a little bit, as well as integrate this with my past experience in IT. And, what we built was what we talked about before was the virtual tailor, and we're able to ship a custom suit and predict your measurements if you lived in Texas or something and ship it to you within 4 weeks.
So cool.
And
so yeah,
so
very inclusive.
And the other part of that is basically, on the tail end of it, sometimes stylistic or minor fit alterations are needed. So, I had to really think, how are we going to take care of that part of the service? We started calling tailors all over the country, whether they're in Boston or New York or, Denver, and just started to build you know, kind of a list of different tailors that we could work with and send our clients to.
Okay, so yeah, you have a recommended tailor so they know that they're getting exactly what they want and
Yeah.
what the brand really represents.
Yeah, and we, you know, we kind of go to each of these places and we, and not go there unless we happen to already be in the city, but we would call them and kind of just tell them what our mission was and why it's important that you respect certain clients that are going to come into this tailor shop to get
Yeah.
alterations. And, you know, once we establish that rapport, then, you know, we're able to work with clients and then these remote tailors. And if they have any questions, they can call us, you know.
I love that you went the extra mile to do that because at the end of the day, it is all about your customers and their experience, regardless what business or industry you're in. So that's such a great example of that.
Yeah, yeah.
So interesting, such great work. Thanks so much for joining us
Thank
today.
you.
Loved learning about your business.
Thank you.
Leon Wu, he's the founder and chief product officer of Sharp Suiting. After this short break, more Business Rock Stars. Welcome back to Business Rock Stars. Now let's go to Mark Black.
Right now, we have a very special guest, Balazs Cardos, joining us. He's the CEO and founder of the Global Prosperity Movement. It's a pleasure to have you on the show with us, brother.
It's awesome to be here, man.
So, Global Prosperity Movement, I know you personally, so I love what you guys are up to. You're impacting so many lives around the world. But for the audience out there, break it down for us. What do you guys do at Global Prosperity Movement?
We educate and inspire people to break free from the system, be able to work from home, have more freedom. We focus around health, wealth, prosperity, and really giving people the tools when they don't have any experience to get them from where they are today to where they ultimately want to go.
What I love is that, you know, a lot of people come on and they say the product that they have. And you talked about essentially what the product does. And I think that's a huge lesson for people out there is when you talk about what you do, it's not the product or the service that you have and what you sell, it's what that does for the customer. And you just explained that. So what is the actual product? So you're helping people with their health, their wealth, their happiness, living a better life. What is the actual thing that they're investing in or learning from?
They're essentially investing in themselves first and foremost with education, personal growth and development, and then we give them the tools and the training to be able to build a business online, you know, leveraging the power of the internet, as well as some really high-level technology for their health and focusing on prevention as opposed to reaction. And what I found is over the last number of years, people are overfed, they're undernourished, they're getting sicker sooner. So there's an epidemic around the health side of things, but also people are focusing on earning money, and then once they acquire success or they acquire a certain amount of money, they lose their health in the process and then spend all their money to get it back.
Like most people are so focused on making the money that they forget about their family or relationships or their health. Not always.
Not always.
But a lot of times we do. We see that people are so focused on getting to that achievement, making that money, building that business, selling the business, retiring, whatever it may be. It's different for everybody. But yeah, unfortunately, we do see that on the path to abundance and riches and success financially, we usually see, unfortunately, some people that do put their health second or third or fourth or fifth or sixth, and sometimes even their family, unfortunately.
And that's happened to me, actually. I was dealing with some health challenges growing up when I started focusing around looking for ways to earn more income because my family growing up, we never had much, so it was always like money driven and success driven, but my health also took a hit. So after a while, I realized if we could teach people simultaneously how to be healthier, wealthier, and have freedom all at the same time, and showing the importance of all those areas as well as relationships, etc., then we can really help people live that fulfilling life.
I want to know, on your journey so far, who's been somebody that had a big impact in your life? Was it, like for me, a Tony Robbins, a John Asseroff? Did you have a mentor growing up that really kind of helped kind of give you that light bulb moment and put you on the path to success?
I've had a few mentors, different stages in my life, but I learned very early that if I wanted to achieve something or have something, I needed to learn from someone who had the things that I wanted. So initially it was books, Zig Ziglar, Jim Rohn, Brian Tracy, around the sales. Then I got more into the personal development of like the Tony Robbins and that. And then I started meeting mentors as I grew myself and value in myself. I started surrounding myself and connecting and meeting entrepreneurs in person. And then I started having mentors in real life, not just through books and audios and courses from a distance.
Well, what do you think was one of the best lessons either you've learned on your journey or that somebody has taught to you that served you on your journey so far?
I think the biggest one early was to have everything you want in life, help other people have that first, and really focus outside of myself. And that's when I realized that there's always someone that I could serve and help and inspire and get them to where they wanted to go, no matter how tough my life and situation was.
Yeah.
And as soon as I did that, things started to come back, tenfold into my own life.
I think it was a Jim Rohn quote, and I love that you brought that up, because it's if you help enough people get what they want, or something, it's like you can have everything you want in the world if you help enough other people get what they want.
Zig Ziglar, yeah.
Zig Ziglar.
One of the first quotes, yeah.
Jim Rohn and Zig Ziglar have some of the best OG quotes that are just like timeless. So you're somebody who at one point was a beginning entrepreneur, like all of us when we get started, but you somehow figured out how to follow some principles that have helped you create $1 million a month business.
Right.
Most people are trying to get their first million. You're doing $1 million a month. What do you feel like are 3 key traits that every entrepreneur needs to know when they're getting started on their journey?
I think first and foremost, just believing in yourself is huge. Waking up every morning knowing that you don't know how to do it, and that's not important, but why you're doing it, and then having that drive you and failing your way to success. So that would be the first thing. The second thing is leverage, figuring out a way to leverage automation systems, tools and resources, because there's only so many hours in a day. So that was huge. And then service to other people. So figuring out what they need and then helping them get to where they want to go.
So serving others, I think, is something that I want to stop on right there, because I think a lot of people first, when they get into money, get into business, it's about money. And a saying that I go back to over and over again in my business is, and I learned from Jay Abraham, a mentor of mine, don't just make a dollar, make a difference. And you've learned that at a young age. And service, adding value, truly is the way to create $1 million a month business or $1 billion a year business. It doesn't matter. You have to serve the customers. Why do you feel like so many businesses are not achieving the success that they can? Is it because they're not serving people in the greatest way? Is it because they're not innovating? Is it because of bad customer service, bad marketing? What do you think it is?
What I've noticed is people don't ask enough questions, so they're always telling people what they think they need as opposed to just simply asking, what do you want, what do you need, and then serving that.
Interesting. Okay, so you're making it sound simpler than I think it actually is. So surveying, getting feedback, research and development. Is there anything else that you feel like holds businesses back? I find that so many companies I consult for use the 6 most deadly words. We've always done it this way. And so I go into a business, I try to show them new, unique ways that you can leverage Facebook marketing and targeting and pixels and all this stuff, and all the different cool ways that you can target people very, very specifically when maybe they're doing like broad marketing. They're doing like billboard ads or TV or radio, which isn't as niched. So I think that's one of the biggest mistakes, is most companies are doing what they've always done. What else do you think?
I think everything rises and falls on leadership, and then also sales and persuasion. So even though like certain people in the business are not in sales as their actual title, I believe everything revolves around that. So if your business doesn't adapt to new technologies that are focused on serving and selling the right way, you're going to be left behind, and you're not going to innovate and move forward.
100% agree with that. Most people are not the best sales guy in their company. And the problem is, if you're getting your business started, somebody's got to be good at sales.
Yeah.
We'll be right back with Balazs Cardos. He's the CEO and founder of the Global Prosperity Movement. And we're going to find out and peel back the layers on how this guy built an organization with 10,000 people and is doing $1 million a month.
You're watching Business Rockstars. Thanks for joining us. Now let's go to Mark Black.
Balazs Cardos is joining us right now. He's the CEO and founder of the Global Prosperity Movement. Recap first what your company does, brother.
We educate and inspire people on how to start a business working from home, getting them from where they are to where they want to go, and really simplifying that process for the newest person with no experiences. So it's awesome, man.
So you provide people the recipe book. They can literally walk in the kitchen, so to speak, have the ingredients, follow the recipe, and get the result. The result that you provide happens to be financial freedom and abundance and a great life. What is that process? What is the blueprint?
I think the big thing that's changing the landscape of business and opportunity today is the power of the internet, power of social media. And what I've come from a background of door-to-door sales and doing things belly-to-belly, face-to-face, is there's so many variables that the average person has to learn. The skill sets, the mindset, the failure, the experiences. There's so many pieces of the puzzle that for someone to come through and catch them up to that level takes a long time. And most people aren't willing to put in the 3, 6, 12, 18 months to get to that place where they're comfortable, right? So what we've done is we've actually broken it down. So instead of learning 10 skill sets to be successful with an online business, we help people just focus on one. And by simplifying it, making it duplicatable, they can come in and 90% of the process is done for you. So the learning curve gets decreased by 90% and they can focus on that 10% and getting better there. And that's why we're having so much success. So we're finding like school teachers and construction workers and servers and bartenders and people who are so far removed. There's such a gap between where they are and where they need to be successful and have the life they want. We can accelerate that without them having to learn those things and be like, this is all in place through softwares and automation, and it's infinitely scalable, so we can serve any country, any language, all over the world, and there's no limitations because the internet does connect us all. So it's really cool.
So anybody of any age, necessarily, any financial background, can pretty much come in and learn this blueprint, this template, this formula. They can follow it. And what is the duration? How long will it take on average? You've got over 10,000 people that have gone through this. How long on average does it take for them to achieve success, see results?
I mean, it really does vary person to person based on their work ethic, how coachable they are, so it's hard to say for sure. We've had some people come in, follow the system, put in as much of their spare time as they can, really get committed to their goals, and quitting their jobs and replacing their full-time income in 30 to 90 days. That's happening quite often. It's really quick. With that being said, it's not a guarantee or a promise that that's going to happen. Some people take 12 to 18 months, but on the flip side, you know, what's the alternative?
Door-to-door sales was something that you did. You sold a lot. You door knocked thousands and thousands of doors. You did it in the snow, and I think most people don't know the lessons that can be learned from door knocking. Most people don't have the calluses from door knocking, especially in the snow. You did this in Canada. You did it for years, and that's kind of how you, so to speak, got your feet in the entrepreneurial space. What are some of the lessons you learned from doing thousands and thousands and thousands of door knocks?
I think that some of the things I learned is that it's not about me. You know, people don't reject you as a person. When I started, I took everything personally. When they said no,
so when
I thought
they slammed
it was me.
The door in your face,
it was always me, right? I went home at the end of the day like, they don't like me and something's wrong with me, and I was like, no, it's not about that. You know, it's just, it's timing sometimes. It doesn't apply to the right people. So I understood that fear of rejection was selfish, so I stopped fearing that. I overcame that. And doing it on a daily basis, I think one of the biggest values is if you have 100 doors, for example, you knock in one day, you have more opportunity and more rejection in a single day than many people put themselves through in a lifetime and or years, right? Because they're always surrounding themselves with their friends, people that agree with their opinions, so they're never actually going head to head with anybody else. So I was able to do that on a daily basis. So you go from being really weak to either quitting, which most people do, or getting extremely strong and being able to never take it personally and become like invincible in a sense.
You weathered the storm.
Weather the storm.
Something that I want to mention real quick is, how did you reframe? What is your definition when rejection happens, when failure happens? How have you turned that into a positive thing that inspires you and empowers you to do more?
I think the big one was feedback. You know, it's not about rejection, it's feedback. So every time something would come up, I would always learn from that and say, okay, what could I do better? Where do I need to focus? Where do I need to practice? And I just took it as feedback as opposed to being a victim to my circumstances or situations and saying like, oh, it's their fault and their fault. I was like, it's me, how can I improve? And day by day, just 1% at a time, got better over, you know, a few years.
I love that. I want to quote that. There's no rejection, there's only feedback. And I think that's so crucial for people out there because they don't take rejection as feedback, or if they do, they're doing it in a negative way. You look at it as, okay, well, I got that door slammed on my face. How can I learn how to not get it slammed on my face? And you just go from that perspective. But it wasn't always that way for you. Like many people, you like me, we struggle with that in the beginning, and then you push through it. I want to shift gears a little bit.
Sure.
We're in a technology era, so to speak, where technology is coming out and changing on a daily basis now. Is there any technology, gadgets, or apps that you use to help you in personal life, business, or anything like that?
My iPhone is probably my top. Everything revolves around my phone.
What apps? Like for me, I know it sounds funny, but the Notes app, I take notes all the time in there, just random thoughts, I'll put them in there, screenshot stuff I want to remember so it's in my photos, and then my calendar app. As funny as it sounds, like those are so important. Plus, I can use Facebook Ads Manager on my phone, so I can manage all my Facebook ads, or at least look at what the team's doing. What about for you?
I definitely use all of them. I really like those tools for sure. I have an app that does scanning, so not having to print paper is a huge thing in my business. It's really helpful. I have so many apps, to be honest. Like, it's so cool to see. I can't think of any one specific.
What's the first app you check on your phone in the morning?
I actually do a practice where I have my phone on airplane mode in the morning, and I do my morning routine. So I actually read first, practice gratitude, and then I turn my airplane mode off. And then I probably go Facebook first. Most of my communication with my business is through there, so I check messages and all that. It's actually taking over the email now. Email's not
It
as
really is,
like
actually. Yeah.
Facebook Messenger and my ads manager are probably more of my focus today as email.
I agree. Facebook Messenger is where everybody talks. As we wrap up the segment, let's hear what you believe, and I know there's a lot, what you believe is one of the most important ingredients that makes a successful entrepreneur. Short and sweet.
I'd say vision. Seeing where you're going to go, practicing that vision, and then having certainty that you will eventually achieve that.
Wow, the power of a vision. We've heard so many people talk about that as they come in the studio. Brother, you're a business rock star. Thanks for
having me.
I'm Mark Lack. This is Business Rockstars. We're here to connect a community of entrepreneurs. So you can join us on Facebook, Twitter, and online at businessrockstars.com.
Do you have a great idea for a product or a business you know is worth millions, but you don't know how or where to start? Are you tired of building somebody else's dream? Well, go build your own. BusinessRockstars.com is an amazing resource for anybody who wants to become an entrepreneur, to start or grow your own business. Go to BusinessRockstars.com. BusinessRockstars.com.
This is Business Rockstars from the NASDAQ market site in Times Square. I'm Jeannie Yerman, and our guest is Eric Kanariwala. He is the CEO and founder of Capsule. Nice to see you.
Thanks for having me.
So before you became an entrepreneur of Capsule, and we'll get into that in just a minute, you actually were in private equity for quite some time as an investor, both at Bain Capital and a firm called Perry Capital. Now, you're heading Capsule, which is looking to kind of upend the traditional pharmacy business. So first off, just real briefly, tell us about Capsule and what it's about.
Sure. Capsule is a full-service modern pharmacy, and we've eliminated all of the familiar frustrations of going to the pharmacy for the modern consumer. And we've also built out a data and analytics platform to help reconnect all of the data that exists between all the different silos of healthcare, so doctors, hospitals, insurance companies, and drug companies. And we do that so we can create better healthcare outcomes than have ever been possible before.
So, you know, when you were with these firms, you're at Bain, you're analyzing companies, did you have that moment where you're just sitting there thinking to yourself, I could do this? You know, you're analyzing all these young companies, and you kind of envisioned yourself leading a young company one day?
I've always had the entrepreneurial spirit. My mom is an entrepreneur and has had her own business for as long as I can remember. And I think for me, the early part of my career and having sort of the good fortune of being mentored by these like amazing investors and being able to kind of invest across public companies and private companies and in the US and internationally, and just being able to really understand how markets work and where are there big kind of shifts in the world. And for us, it was kind of these two big themes that I had identified when I was an investor. And one was this idea that, gosh, like the way all of us are consuming retail experiences are changing, and storefronts on street corners for things that aren't an experience are going to live on your phone. And you're seeing that in other parts of the world happen really fast. You're seeing that happen in the US. And the other big thing was the world of healthcare has just dramatically shifted since 2010 and the Affordable Care Act. And so putting these two things together and that combining with like a personal experience of mine of going to the pharmacy kind of brought these three big ideas together and was sort of the formation of Capsule.
You know, it's kind of interesting that you have the perspective of having analyzed companies and been an investor, but what insight do you now have as an entrepreneur? You're on the other side of the table that you didn't have before.
Yeah, for us, stepping into Capsule, the biggest insight that we've learned building the business is there's a lot more opportunity than we thought from the outside. And I think it's only until you open the door and you kind of are halfway through the attic that you really understand, like, here's where all the old cobwebs are, and this is how you kind of sweep them out and build something better. And I think that's been a really exciting thing for us. I think most entrepreneurs, as they get their businesses going, you start to see walls. And I think we're really lucky that we just see windows. Like every time that we kind of peer into this really incredibly complex industry, we understand more and more and more about how to fix it using technology, using design, using brand, and to help people have better healthcare outcomes.
Why is it you think that a lot of entrepreneurs see walls and not windows?
I've always personally believed is that most successful businesses and most successful entrepreneurs live at the intersection of your head and your heart aligning. And so this idea that you have to be, the head part of it is, hey, this has to be a good idea, the business has to make sense, the market has to make sense, the industry has to be attractive, kind of all the things that you would expect an investor to kind of think about an idea. But I think that your heart has to align with that, and so that not only is this a good market and a good business, a good industry, but like this is something you're viscerally passionate about, and that is a problem that you want to wake up every morning thinking about solving, and you want to go to sleep every night thinking about solving it. And I think when those two things come together, there's not that many things can get in your way, because you've got the passion to sustain you through the inevitable ups and downs of starting a company, and you've got the sort of intellectual conviction that this should exist in the world. So that served me well, and that was sort of kind of the origin of Capsule.
I suppose you spend any number of nights, though, staring at the ceiling, or, you were saying that it's the passion that kind of helps you get over that hurdle, yes?
It's your emotional passion and like your intellectual passion. I think it's both of those things that kind of combine. I think that there's a lot of companies where the founders or the entrepreneurs are really passionate about it, but it's just never going to be a sustainable business because it's not something the world needs, or it's not something the world needs enough. And I think on the flip, you have a lot of people who are like dispassionate. Hey, this is a good idea on paper. This is a very attractive market that's broken. Let's start a company around it. And when that thesis is like a half degree off, you never get through. You don't have that like, inside your heart of like, this is the thing I want to solve. You're like, wow, I was wrong. Let me move on to the next thing. And so I think to kind of cross all of these obstacles that come in your way as an entrepreneur, you need to have conviction around both things. Like, this is something the world needs, and this is something I personally have experienced, and so I know the world needs it.
So you're in a space where you have a lot of naysayers, and there are a lot of heavyweights out there that are, don't want to see you succeed. What do you do to kind of get your mind around that? Do you just kind of block it out, or what's your method for that?
We don't see a lot of naysayers, I guess.
No?
I think we see a lot of people who probably wish that they could build what we build, or think that they need to serve the consumer the way we do, largely sort of big companies that are in the pharmacy space. But I think generally what we are hearing from the market and from our consumers and from the doctors that work with us is that this is something that the world needs. And I think people are pretty excited about having pharmacy and healthcare more broadly come into like the modern era, right? It's pretty amazing how far the consumer experience in healthcare is lagging literally everything else in your life, and how technology and mobile phones and amazing brands and experiences have transformed the world of mattresses and razors and hailing a taxi, and the most important thing in your life, your healthcare, has stayed the same as it was 100 years ago, more or less, when the big pharmacy chains got started.
We're going to take a quick break. This is Business Rockstars from the NASDAQ Market Site. We'll have more with Eric Kinnerwally in just a moment. This is Business Rockstars from the NASDAQ Market Site in Times Square. Our guest is Eric Kinnerwally. He is the CEO of Capsule. Nice to see you back. So, Capsule, you basically are looking to disrupt the pharmacy business. How are you doing this?
Sure. So what we've done at Capsule is we've taken what's typically a completely frustrating experience for most people going to the pharmacy and interacting with the pharmacy, and made that completely simple and digital, the way most things are in your life. And so the way Capsule works today is there's two ways you can use it as a consumer. One is you can go to our website or the app, which is capsulecares.com, put in 4 pieces of information: your name, your birth date, the name of your pharmacy. Capsule becomes your pharmacy at that moment, and we will then deliver your medication the same day, today anywhere in New York City, within 2 hours to your home or your office. Along the way, you've got the ability to text or chat with a pharmacist to get expert advice, as opposed to asking your personal medical questions with a line of people behind you in a pharmacy. You've got the ability to know what the price of your medication is actually before you decide to pay for it, before you decide to wait in line for an hour and get it. And we've built out a bunch of tools around predictive inventory, because 40% of the time the average American goes to the pharmacy, their medication's out of stock. And so we've taken all of these things that are high friction and lead to people actually not getting their medication and taking them, and made it completely simple with our iPhone app or on our website or just via SMS. The other way you can use Capsule is right at your doctor's office. When your doctor says, "What's your pharmacy?" you can just say Capsule, and we'll electronically get your prescription from your doctor. And then the same thing, you've got the ability to basically see the price of it, get information about it, text with the pharmacist, put in your payment and delivery address.
So it would seem to me just intuitively that there's a little bit of reluctance, at least by doctors' offices. You mentioned they're using it, and even users, customers, doing something online that they've always been accustomed to doing in person. How's that shift been? Is there kind of an education campaign that has to take place?
So it's really interesting. I think when you look at the evolution of sort of consumer commerce online, we think about it in 3 big waves. Sort of wave 1 was the mid to late 90s with companies like Amazon and Wayfair, where all of a sudden you had this ability to have infinite selection of commodity goods, and you knew their price, and you didn't have to interact with a human, and something would show up at your door. And that was like the first 10 years of basically e-commerce. And at that point, it became that literally anything and everything you wanted to buy that was a commodity you could buy. And you saw this like second crop of companies come up that were basically using the power of the internet to build real brands around the consumer experience. So things like Casper and mattresses, Harry's with razors, Warby Parker with eyewear. And you saw the same thing, which is, let's take commodity products, let's build a brand around it. Let's use the internet to connect directly with people, but let's actually still eliminate the human. You don't need the human anymore. And I think what you're seeing now is the last or third wave of commerce, and it's basically the places where you can't eliminate the human because it's high trust, and you want the human and the technology to be kind of really interwoven. So it's things like healthcare and Capsule, it's things like financial services, and it's things like real estate. And we think the set of tools and the capabilities you need to build a company in the third wave of commerce are just distinctly different from the first two. And that's primarily, how do we take the best of what a human has to offer, the timeless warmth of a pharmacist who can give you advice, or your doctor, and combine that with algorithms that can actually make that pharmacist, in our case, a super pharmacist. So she knows their drug interactions, she knows exactly when you're taking your medications and when you're not, and combining those two things in this like incredible experience that's never been possible before. I think that's what's getting people excited and comfortable using Capsule, is both that other things have come before it and people are used to transacting on their phones, but also that we've retained the high trust element of it, which is the human part of it.
So I have to ask, what would be some concrete examples of how you're bringing all these people together? And my mind's going to, you hear about how with Bloomberg, when he was mayor, he had these meetings where he said, you've got X number of minutes to talk, but they were regular meetings, but very regimented. Do you have certain methods, regular meetings, ways of communicating that keeps this group cohesive, as you say?
Yeah, so one of the things that we do to create deep empathy in, across what different teams are doing is we actually have them go and do the job of somebody else on another team. And so where possible. And so, everyone on our team, regularly sits with our customer service team and answers queries from our customers. They'll go out on deliveries to understand what's actually happening in the real world. And I think by kind of effectively doing cross work, I think you get a really good sense of how hard sort of your peer's job is, but also you get this really interesting perspective on how to yourself be more successful in your job. So that's one thing that I think we've done a pretty good job of.
Sounds really smart. All right, well, wish you much, much continued success.
Thank you.
I've been speaking with Eric Kanari-Walla. He is the CEO of Capsule from the NASDAQ market site in Times Square. This is Business Rockstars.
Thanks
for sharing the time with us, and we'll see you next time on Business Rockstars.